Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, whenever you find to watch or listen to this podcast. It is me, Omar Rashan Borja, the Burger Popper, late on a Tuesday. And it's late on a Tuesday because I have work off tomorrow. Shout out to Juneteenth. Great holiday. It's a great federal holiday finally being recognized. So I want to wish everyone a very premature Juneteenth. And if you don't know about the holiday, read up on it and just spend some time reflecting, because that's what we're all about here. Holidays aren't just days off. But I am joined today by a familiar face, not just to the podcast, but to the college football world. He's here to talk about stadiums, of course, but also to bring his expertise as a San Diego resident for some recent college football news that, quite frankly, hits close to home for me as a fan of ballpark football. I am joined by Michael Barker, the famous CFB Campus Tour, the famous start of the trend of the obstructed views is if you haven't got one of these calendars, there's still 6 months left in the year. Go ahead and get you one of them. Mike, thank you again for joining.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Thank you for that great introduction. And we've done this several times, so I always appreciate being able to be a guest on your show.
Yeah, and I mean the pleasure is mine, and I can't wait for this discussion. I mean, we already started the discussion like beforehand. Hopefully, I mean, not all of it. I mean, we'll rehash some of it, but not all of it's gonna make the podcast. But
Right.
the news I'm talking about, if you, I guess, in the slow news cycle in the college football season, it's kind of picking up. But the Holiday Bowl just randomly decided after the bowl schedule was released, except for their bowl, of course, because they're Fox is their television partner, so they released their date a little bit later. But they just randomly announced that they're moving from Petco Park to SnapDragon Stadium, the home of the San Diego State Aztecs football team, and along with a couple of other sports as we talked about before. You say it's a multi-use stadium, multi-use, multi-purpose, however you want to say, but they're moving to San Diego State's campus. And the decision's kind of a head scratcher because there was no indication really that the bowl was not successful in its first two games at Petco Park. The first game at Petco Park was Oregon, North Carolina in 2022. Great game. We both were there. And then the next year, USC, of course, the home team, the de facto home team, hosting Louisville in the Holiday Bowl. Great attendance in both cases. So this kind of comes, as a surprise. It kind of blindsides a lot of people. So I just want to know your thoughts, Mike, as a San Diego resident on this move.
Yeah, there's so many ways to weave this. This has been going on for a long time. So, just the background, first of all, is the Holiday Bowl has been a very successful, great bowl. One of the most exciting non-big bowls there's been over the past 30, 40 years. BYU won a national championship way back in 1984. It's had, Barry Sanders going off and just some remarkable games and players that have played in that bowl. And it's always been a tradition of mine to try to get to as many as possible. And the stadium issue with Jack Murphy Qualcomm, it had a lot of ramifications. The Chargers tried very hard to get a stadium solution involving the city of San Diego. It never panned out. And when the Stan Kroenke and the Rams wanted to move from St. Louis, they got a partner from San Diego to go up there and fill SoFi, and San Diego lost football. And the Aztecs ended up being in sole possession of Qualcomm, but it's a 70,000 seat stadium for a G5 school, and it really didn't fit the mold. So the Holiday Bowl, when they knocked down Qualcomm in lieu of building SnapDragon Stadium, 35,000 seats, they had to give up that bowl. The Aztecs played in Carson, California for 2 years while it was being built. And then the Holiday found a home at Petco Park, as you mentioned, with the Padres. And the move back, I think, is one trying to right the situation. But I think people in San Diego and travelers in general really got accustomed, even in a short period of time, of the premium downtown location, the proximity to the airport, the close to nightlife and amenities and the hotels down in downtown where Petco Park is. So, as you mentioned, it's a little bit of a blindside move, and I would guess, speculate that it's not 100% positively received by those people who are going to be going to future holiday bowls.
I would agree. And so much of bowl games is what happens off the field, like the events that happen in the community. And I mean, when I went to the Holiday Bowl, I didn't partake in a lot of the events, but just the downtown vibe. Our Petco Park is not too far from the ocean. I forget which ship is there, which former, I guess, decommissioned battleship is there, but that's there. That's close to
I've been
Petco
on it
Park.
too, and I can't remember the name either, but I've been on it. Yeah, yeah.
It's because I'm an army guy. That's why I can't remember the name. All the ships are the same. So there's your anger bait, Navy fans there. But yeah, like I mean, it's just about the events off the field, and I can't imagine. I'm not sure where San Diego State is located in relation to downtown San Diego, but I mean, it's on campus. Like the game's gonna be on a college campus. It's always kind of a weird vibe going to a game on a college campus.
So
Like
let me jump in real quick. So it's not on a college campus. So
okay,
it's about 3 miles. So when you land in San Diego Airport, the Petco Park gas lamp district is about a mile. San Diego or SnapDragon Stadium now is closer to a town called La Mesa, and it's about 20 minutes further inland. The San Diego State campus is about 2 to 3 miles north above where SnapDragon Stadium is located. So if you're a student, you can't just walk there. It's got its own dedicated parking lot. There's there's a freeway exit right there. So it has the pro stadium vibes. It has a good setup for that, but it's not going to be what we think of like the Sun Bowl or the bowl that's at South Alabama, those sort of setups. So, but it's a different vibe. Like you got to rent a car, you got to drive into the, 25 minutes into the down towards La Mesa. So it's a little bit different of a setup than just the polar opposite of what you have at Petco Park.
yeah, so I mean, I think you definitely like hit the nail on the head. I guess how different of an experience it is now with the Holiday Bowl leaving Petco Park and going to Snapdragon Stadium. Would have to ask you, like, San Diego's public transportation infrastructure, is it great or is it,
So
I
it's
mean,
better. So there was always been a trolley that could go to the stadium, and they even when they knocked down Qualcomm, they left that in place. It was interesting. I mentioned to you before we started recording that I had talked to the person in charge of issuing credentials at the 2022 Holiday Bowl, and he told me two things. He told me one was that because of the success and the location, they planned on having this at Petco Park for quite a while. But one of the downsides of Petco Park with football was that it was never intended to host football. I was told that they specifically made it so it couldn't host football because they kind of saw the writing on the wall with the Chargers. They didn't want to be that fallback plan to have to be a dual stadium going from football because the Chargers didn't have a place to play. The the game that we went to, I don't know if you remember, but the field was in bad condition and there was a lot of complaints about that. I think they recovered for the one you mentioned last year, USC Louisville, but it wasn't ballpark. Yes, that part is great. Another part of it being, you mentioned the obstructed views calendar. If you go up to the top, like where the left field pole is of Petco Park, that warehouse blocked a corner of an end zone. So, but even in a baseball configuration, it's still blocking the left field. So, I think they made the best of it, but what this really comes down to is convenience. And as you mentioned, they have a parade for the players outside, and they do that right outside the stadium and downtown, and everything is walking distance. So what this comes down to is the huge difference between a ballpark downtown near the airport, walking, everything self-condensed, easy, versus a more traditional football stadium further away, more set up for tailgating, but not that, just get off the plane, check into your hotel, and you're immersed in all the festivities. It's two distinctly different setups.
yeah, I agree. And I think another thing with the setup is getting fans to come to this game, like might be more difficult, honestly. I mean, if there's not a either Arizona school or one of the Southern California schools, I should say USC or UCLA going to this game, I feel like if you're a former Pac-12 team going to this bowl in the next 2 years of bowl cycle, and also ACC team, I feel like you'd be less inclined to go because you're not playing in a Major League Baseball stadium, you're just playing in an on-campus stadium. And it's like if you're an ACC fan, it's like what makes the Holiday Bowl different than no offense than the Military Bowl because they're both on campus bowls or not sorry not on campus but they're both played at college stadiums. Like there's not that real I guess big game appeal of playing in a pro stadium, playing in a unique venue in a stadium that, has that ambiance and everything. So that's something that I'm thinking of too. I mean, I'm not saying that schools are going to turn down bids, but the fans, I mean, if I was a fan, like I guess, I'm a different fan. I love the neutral site games, but it's like,
Yep.
like I guess if you ask me like would I rather see Army play at Petco Park or at Snapdragon, I'm gonna pick Petco Park 10 times out of 10. Like that's just that.
Yeah, there's really no history at Snapdragon yet. I went to the grand opening in 2022. They played Arizona. It was the hottest sporting event in the history of San Diego. They put it on at 12:30 to get a primetime spot. Everyone baked. They lost the game. Last year they had a down year. They got, Brady Hoke moved on and they brought in Sean Lewis. So right now there's no aura, there's no history, there's no significant wins, there's no bowl games there. So they're hosting a lot of soccer. Obviously, San Diego, there's a lot of USA, Mexico soccer games, but it is going to be different also because of the capacity. It used to have 65, 70,000, and now we're down to 35. You mentioned the Military Bowl. I did go to the Military Bowl last year, and it was Virginia Tech and Tulane, and they filled that place up. It was about 27, 28,000 seats. So there was a good vibe there. So I'm optimistic. You still have the selling point of San Diego, and I was just about to say Hawaii. It almost skipped out of my
Yes.
mouth, but that's a similar comp because they had the Hawaii Bowl, and that was played at Aloha Stadium, and that was 50,000 seats, and now that game is played on campus at TC Chang, and it started out with 4,000 seats, and they've got it up to 17,000 seats, but um, very similar setup where that's on campus. It's a smaller stadium. There's no history there, but it's more convenient versus one that's bigger, that's held a lot of events this further away. So I'm not sure how people are going to react. Another thing, there's no date yet. And I know you mentioned Fox, but every other bowl game has a date and that one doesn't. So if you're going to go new venue and you don't have a date, that's going to be something that people are going to they're going to want that date. They're going to want to start making plans. Obviously, the teams aren't going to be knowing where they're going to play until the end of the year, but people who are going to go to that game regardless, they want to know when it's scheduled. So a lot of moving parts with this decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with like the last part about like if you are a stadium enthusiast like we are, if you like ballpark football, like I remember from 2021, which the 2021 game that didn't happen, I had a ticket, I had a flight, and I found out the game was canceled the day of. Like the game was canceled like a few hours before kickoff, and I was in Phoenix and ended up going to the Guaranteed Rate Bowl instead, which like looking back, out of all the bowls that I've seen in person in my life, that honestly might be the most boring bowl game I've ever been to. Like honestly, like 18 to 6. I think the only exciting thing to happen was a 1 yard touchdown by Daniel Falele, the 6'8", 380 pound lineman
Wow.
for Minnesota. But I can't remember a single other thing that happened in that game. Like it just like and this is coming from someone that probably loves Bulls more than anyone. But that's just a brief like side note.
Well, I want to jump in with another side note. I was outside of Petco Park when they canceled the game. I was going to get my credential, trying theirs 3 hours before the game. And the 2 days before, I was in Honolulu, and Todd Graham canceled the Hawaii Bowl 15 hours before, and he already knew he was going to cancel. He was just getting extra practice time. And he made Memphis fly out to the island and then canceled it. And then Chip Kelly did the same thing to NC State that game. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It made me gun shy. I didn't even go to the Alamo Bowl because they said they had 40 players in COVID, and then Oregon played quarterback with a wide receiver. I don't know if you remember that game. So that was one. They were down like 40 players in that game. So there's a lot of they made the best of it at Petco. I last year I went to Fenway Park for the Fenway Bowl and had a lot of fun. That was my first time there. I know the Pinstripe Bowl. I know that you're hopefully going to be going to Yankee Stadium for the Notre Dame Army game. So there are some other ballpark games. So hopefully you can find a replacement. But this one is definitely, it's going to take time for people to adjust, and hopefully the legacy, the excitement, the attraction of a bowl game in San Diego where the weather is nice when it's not very nice anywhere else outdoors in bowl season. Hopefully that will return And but I do think they need to put a date on the calendar. We need to know the tie-ins, and then hopefully we can start to get excited about it.
I agree. I mean, San Diego, SeaWorld will still be there and everything, attracting people. The beach will still be there. Geez, it was like we went to Coronado Beach when my family went. Amazing views. Geez, I mean,
Yep.
I'm not one for natural beauty and everything, but man, it was great seeing those waves crashing against the shore. But I want to move on from, I guess, this good spot to talking about the Snapdragon Stadium itself, and something that, like, I guess we were ranting before we recorded is, honestly, I mean, I don't mean any hate to San Diego State fans. It's great that you have a stadium of your own. It's great that the program has a stadium of their own. But I'm just saying, like, the trend that Snapdragon has followed, along with Payne Whitney Stadium out there in Mobile for South Alabama, and Protective Stadium in Birmingham, which I'm in a group chat with a bunch of Alabamians. Uh, most of them are from Birmingham, home of the Birmingham Stallions. It's the Birmingham Stallions group chat. They're gonna hate me for this, but it's like a lot of these newer stadiums, like, they serve their purpose. They give these schools homes with amenities, that with good press boxes, good premium seating, but they're just boring. Like, there's no exterior character to them. Like in Arizona stadiums, like the first comes to mind, or like Ohio Stadium. Like, there's like no exterior character. These stadiums just like kind of, they're boring. And so I feel the same thing with Snapdragon, where it's like a lot of fans will walk up to Snapdragon for the Holiday Bowl. Fans from like out of outside the area, ACC fans, and they'll see Snapdragon, and I don't think they'll be amazed by the venue. It's like, yeah, this is a new stadium. I don't have to worry about the seats crumbling or or restrooms, but it's just not a spectacular stadium. Like, I don't know your thoughts, Mike, as someone that has been to Snapdragon, was there for the first game. Am I crazy for thinking this, or is this something that you can relate to?
No, I agree with a lot of what you said. South
Yes.
Alabama, UAB, San Diego State, all in similar positions where they were in stadium purgatory. Legion Field, we love. Lad Peebles, we love. Not on campus. Legion Field, especially too large. Lad is a good 25-minute drive from campus. And then obviously the situation with the Chargers leaving. The all three of those schools being G5s getting their own on campus stadium is a huge accomplishment. Okay. Accomplishment. The stadium is the accomplishment. Are we too greedy? Maybe we want something more. I will tell you that, when you go to downtown Birmingham and you get in Protective and you see the skyline in the background, it's pretty cool. I do like that. South Alabama is a sleek stadium, but metal bleachers. It's I don't want to say cheap is the wrong word, but you can tell that it was minimal, done in a minimalist way. And Snapdragon, I think, has less personality than those two stadiums. I think that, I tell people that the signature piece of a stadium is the press box. When you watch a game, the Stallions played there, Birmingham, and the UFL, you still see UAB Blazers there. You still see South Alabama there. There's nothing on Snapdragon Stadium in a press box or anything that says San Diego State Aztecs. They have these little small scoreboards. Part of it is the stadium is 35,000 seats, but it's expandable to 55,000. And what they did was both end zones are one story and they have a small scoreboard. And the way I look at it is you could put 10,000 seats in one end zone, 10,000 in the other, and then all of a sudden you have a 55,000 seat stadium. And, maybe it would attract a certain team that left a few years ago to come back. But in the meantime, it very much has soccer stadium vibes. They host a ton of soccer there. You mentioned this is could be a trend. Kansas is knocking down their Memorial Stadium. It's already knocked down, and the renderings are very similar to what I see at Snapdragon Stadium. So it doesn't, and we can go back a couple years and somebody may counter and say, well, maybe they just can't build those kind of stadiums because it has to be 60 or 70 years old. You look at a place like McLean in Waco, and Baylor did an amazing job with a new stadium. And yes, it's on the Brazos River, and yes, it has a great location, but that stadium is unique and it's new and it's very widely regarded as a great stadium. So you can still create new stadiums and have a fresh look, but keep it like a classic looking football stadium. So I'm disappointed in the way Snapdragon turned out with its configuration. But again, to San Diego people, it's more of a celebration of saving, I don't want to say saving, but keeping San Diego State football close to campus in a venue that when you get a 27,000 people in Qualcomm, it looks like, it's empty. Well, you get 27,000 in Snapdragon, you're almost full. So that's kind of where I see things.
Yeah, I agree. Like with the stadium itself being the achievement, which is great. No one is discounting anything or those programs for getting those stadiums at all. No one's discounting them at all. It's just like I just want more. And I
Yeah.
think greedy
Yeah.
might be the right word, but like something for me, it's like, and I point back to Arizona Stadium because it's fresh in my mind. Someone mentioned that stadium. It's like I look at a stadium like that and I'm like, an architect over 70, 80 years ago was able to do that with the stadium. Like, why can't we, with everything we've advanced as a society, everything that we know as a society with architecture, like, how come we can't, build stadiums that are just great feats of architecture, just, where you see the art in the stadium instead of just throw some bleachers up, call it a day, come up with some cool renderings, get the people excited, call it a day. And so that's just where I'm coming from. I
I
mean, I'm not
agree.
saying it's a bad stadium, but it's just, yeah.
Well, if you look at what Northwestern is doing, they knocked down Ryan Field, almost a 100-year-old stadium. They're building a new Ryan Field. It's going to have, old Ryan Field had 47,000 seats. The new one's going to have 35,000. It's going to be mostly enclosed with a little bit of a canopy at the top, but it's still going to be an outdoor stadium. They're spending $800 million on that stadium, and it's not going to look like anything that we have in college. And people will respond and they'll say, "Oh, well, Ryan Field was a dump." And my response is, take half of that money, put it in Ryan Field, and what do you think you're going to get? You're going to get a spectacular stadium, keep the old classic feel, and have everything up to date rather than knock it down and build something that's completely counter to everything that we have in college football. So, you see what's happening in Northwestern, you see what's happening at Kansas, you see what San Diego State did, and you see the renderings in the NFL, and you do get a little bit worried about the direction. We have plenty of classic stadiums. I always bring up the SEC. The oldest stadium or the youngest stadium in the SEC is Kroger Field, Commonwealth Stadium, and that was built in 1973. So everything is very old there, and you don't hear any complaints about we got to tear down Neyland, we got to tear down Jordan Hare. It never happens. So, but it is worrisome. I do tell people that this whichever school or professional team decides to build a retro stadium with all the modern amenities hidden, kind of not prominent, they're going to be the first ones to hit a home run and have the greatest stadium, the new stadium out there. And I don't know who's going to have the guts to do that because everybody, they like the fancy, the lights and the exterior and all that. But I really think there's hopefully someone is going to break the mold when it comes to a newer college football stadium and go retro with Wi-Fi and all the other things that we know people want to have comfort at a game.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the first step towards that is like the Liberty Bowl. The Liberty Bowl's renovations might be the first
Yes.
step, like where like a kind of a rudimentary look at how you can, I guess, retrofit a stadium, or whatever the word is, how you can renovate stadiums with modern amenities, but keep the look of the stadium alive. But that's just my thoughts with Snapdragon. Um, I mean, I think one more thing I guess I'll add before I guess I give the floor to you, Mike, for your closing thoughts is for me the Holiday Bowl moving from Petco Park. Like, yes, I know Qualcomm, Jack Murphy is dead. It's not alive anymore. The game was not at that stadium for the past 2 years, but I just think to myself the vibe of playing at the Padres Stadium was there. The vibe of the primetime lights in a pro stadium was there. It's like it's just hard to harken back to those classic moments in Holiday Bowl history where you have like Phil McConkey grabbing the deep touchdown pass for Navy in the first Holiday Bowl, the halfback pass to Steve Young, which was a playable moment in NCAA 2004, the halfback pass against Missouri to Steve Young, which birthed the legend of Steve Young. Who's now a Hall of Famer and everything. It's like I don't really have that vibe from playing it in a random on comp or uh, on or not on campus, a random college stadium that, even though Qualcomm was gone, the spirit of those holiday bowls played just being played in the Padres home was there the past couple of years. So I mean, that's just I'm just gonna end it with a little bit of nostalgia on my end. But Mike, I mean, yeah, if you have anything to add after that.
It's going to be a challenge. It's, you can't have something stop and then just automatically restart it in a different place and expect it to blow up. I mean, one of the consequences of Aloha Stadium getting condemned is you lose the Hula Bowl, and the Pro Bowl is not there. And there's a lot of people who say don't even play the Pro Bowl anymore because of the way that it's turned non-competitive and it's moving around. And players used to look forward to going to Hawaii for the whole game, and that whole thing is gone. A lot of reasons because of the stadium. And so, what San Diego is going to try to have to do is recreate something, but almost with zero connection to the past. And for the reasons you talked about, all the positives of the location of Petco Park, it has superior capacity. It has superior proximity to all the amenities, the airport, all the things we talked about. So this is going to make people adjust. And a lot of times, just because you tell people it's going to be different, they may not change with it. So they need a successful first couple runs. Hopefully they can get some big teams in there. The upside is 35,000 seems like something you could sell out, continue to pitch, the weather in San Diego and get that going. But you're almost starting from scratch, and that's going to be difficult. So I agree with you. We're going to have to make new memories in a new building after people got used to a great bowl game historically at the old stadium, and then the convenience and the contrast and the novelty of being at a ballpark like Petco Park, which people feel is one of the best baseball stadiums in all of Major Leagues. So a challenge. Can they do it? Yes, but I think it's not guaranteed by any means.
Yeah, I agree. And something that came to mind with you saying start from scratch, I'm thinking about a similar situation with the Heart of Dallas slash now First Responder Bowl, moving from the Cotton Bowl Stadium to Gerald Ford Stadium out at SMU. And I just think to myself, as an Army fan, we have a special place in our hearts for the Heart of Dallas Bowl back in 2016, where we set the record for most rushing yards in a game at the Cotton Bowl.
Mm.
I mean, we beat all those Wishbone, Oklahoma, and Wishbone, Texas teams that played games in the Cotton Bowl, which is it's pretty great. But I feel like had that game been played at Gerald Ford Stadium, I feel like the memories wouldn't be as fond. I mean, we won the game. We beat North Texas in that bowl game, but it's just the fact that we played in the Cotton Bowl, like Army football playing in the Cotton Bowl, that's big time and everything. So I feel like kind of like the same thing, like I mean, which I guess I kind of mentioned earlier, but that's something that came to mind, just starting from scratch. And I feel like a bowl like the First Responder Bowl, I feel like it hasn't really reached that height that it did when it was played at the Cotton Bowl, which I don't really fear the same thing for the Holiday Bowl. But something good that I think can come out of this is I think the Mountain West might be able to regain a tie-in back to the Holiday Bowl. I mean, with everything happening with the Pac-12 slash now Pac-2, now it's moving to a less attractive stadium. I definitely feel like we can return to tradition here and have the Holiday Bowl be the Champions Bowl for the Mountain West. I mean, uh, geez, I mean, I think I might want to start this movement now, actually, after this podcast drops, just give the Holiday Bowl back to the Mountain West. But that's just something that I think could be possible where, I mean, the Pac-12 because I guess now that the Pac-12 doesn't exist really at the moment, the next step would be asking the Big Ten, like, hey, do you want to send teams to the Holiday Bowl? Which I can see the Big Ten turning their nose to the Holiday Bowl. Same thing with the ACC. Well, the ACC is already in it. I mean, so they need an opponent. I mean, but yeah, it's just my thoughts with starting from scratch. Well, we can either start from scratch in a bad way or start from scratch in a good way. So
Yeah, and we're hoping it's a good way because again, it's one of the greatest cities in the United States. A two or 3 year old stadium, a tradition of a great game, and they have a lot of pieces in place to work with. So sometimes when you give people a taste of something different and they like it, and then you got to change it, it's hard to adjust back. But hopefully, there's games that I know UCF has got the Cure Bowl, and they got there's games that move around and they change sponsors all the time. So hopefully people aren't extremely rigid and they could give it a chance and move it. But um, I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. And when they announce the date, maybe I can find a way to put it on my calendar because it would be a good time to go back and have this one be the litmus test and see the contrast between Petco and Snapdragon for the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope the date works for you, Mike, for sure, because I mean the bowl slate gets kind of packed after Christmas. I mean, it's crazy. This year's bowl slate, it's unlike anything that I don't think any of us has seen. Like, well, I mean, we haven't seen it because there's never been a 12-team playoff. So it's just very weird. It really is, but it's optimal too in some spots. So yeah, Mike, do you have anything final to add or to promote before we sign off?
No, just all I'm gonna say is we're gonna try to beat 90 games this year, so we're gonna try to do more. I know you like bowls. I can tell you off the top of my head, I'm gonna go to the Bahamas Bowl. It's the only game on that day. I've never been there, so that's exciting to try to check that off. Try to get to one or two of these on-campus playoff games. It's the same time as the FCS semifinals, so that's gonna be a crazy time, but we have an extra week of the regular season and the national championship got pushed out another week and a half. So this is going to be 5 full months of football. And, a guy who likes to travel, it's fun, but then you realize you're almost spending half the year on the road. So it's going to be a lot. But no, I just, everybody follow, if you're not following now, CFB Campus Tour on Instagram and Twitter. And first game tentatively is going to be SMU at Nevada, week 0, August 24th. And just go from there.
Absolutely. I mean, just follow Mike for not just his travels, but just he posts great stadium content, great stadium facts and everything that, inspire people's travels too. So just overall a great follow on both Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for you to beat 90 games. I mean, I definitely think you can do it. I mean, like I know that there will be a way, especially like with the extended season. And hopefully there's no ticket antics like we had talked about before the podcast. But
Yep.
yeah, I'm
And
excited.
hopefully it works out. And I've run into your family at bowl a couple of times, so hopefully they'll see this crazy guy jumping out of the stands to come talk to him for a few minutes a couple of times this bowl season.
Yeah, I think we're up to 4 times now that my family's seen you.
Yeah,
So
they're like,
it's pretty funny.
yep, they're like, who is this guy? What doesn't he have anything to do? And I'm like, nope, I got nothing to do. I'm coming to talk to you guys. So, but yeah, we'll see each other at some point during the season for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone, until next time, thank you for listening, everyone. Please leave a like and subscribe. Figure I should do that now because I see my favorite YouTuber, Jaguar Gator 9 starting to do that. I never thought how much you have to remind people to like and subscribe. So if you reach this point, like and subscribe helps the channel. But until next time, everyone, thank you for listening or watching. I'm the Burger Popper. Peace, love, and soul.